here, maybe we do this ourselves. I want to see this happen. I want to see that done better. That was just wrong. And we talk about what we'd like to see. I want to see this happen or that happen, as if we expect somebody somewhere to sort of do that. And, they ought to fix it. They ought to fix the roads. That's particularly true here in Edmonton, where winter causes good potholes. With the freezing and thawing of asphalt, that's normal in any city that freezes a lot. So this is certainly not unique to here. But we talk in abstractions as if somebody is the they, and we imagine that it's somebody's responsibility to do that. And it is. I mean, the city, roads and department has the responsibility to do some things. I'm not saying that isn't true, but I wonder sometimes if we miss an opportunity to be an owner. Like if I have a vision for my yard to look a certain way, then I'm the owner and I can go out there and do that, or I can hire somebody and give them some instructions and make it happen, right? And a vision without an owner is just sort of a wish, kind of floating in the air. And so it isn't really a question of whether or not the vision's beautiful. The real question is, what am I willing, or what are we willing to do to make it exist? Now, so when I talk about vision, I'm not meaning just some pretty word, not as a dream board. I don't watch television much at all, especially not news channels, because I don't know what news channels are anymore. All the news channels seem to be hell bent on perpetuating one narrative or another. I remember when people used to just read the news, the news reader, and now every news delivery mechanism wants to be a celebrity. But anyway, when there's interviews, even in a podcast, like I interview lots of people and I listen to others, people paint a vision, a 5D world, or a world where everyone has access to mental health services or food or shelter or free university or universal health care, or, we talk about that. And so we talk about that like a vision we talk about in a workshop, right? But I want to talk about the moment our vision, or such a vision, stops being something we admire and becomes something we own. I hear that. You do too, I'm sure, all the time. I want to see that happen. I want to see more healing in the world. I want to see people forgive. I want to see better leadership. I want to see people write their books. I say that. I want to see a movement. I want to see lives change. I want people to become free. And all of those things, of course, they sound wonderful. They're noble. But there's a hidden weakness and sort of a pablum, an anesthetic in that sentence. Because saying that is a way to stand beside a vision without taking responsibility for it. It lets me or you admire the possibility, but leaving the ownership unclear. It lets us sound maybe committed while we're still waiting for someone else, somewhere else, somehow to make the thing real. Now, I'm the first to say I can't, or at least I certainly don't know how to do everything that I see or that I want to have happen. But I challenge myself regularly. I did this morning. If you followed much of my stuff, that I do a morning creation process. I don't like calling it a morning ritual because that's so cliche, but I call it a DCP, daily creation process, and I do it every day. I never skip. And in that process, in those activities, it takes a couple hours, but I create myself, and part of that is a recommitment to the vision that I have. It's a vision that I've taken responsibility. I am committed to create. And so I want you to think about your own vision. What are you committed to create? Now, in some other time, we talked about the word commitment is a sacred word. Intention, even promise, yearning, real strong intention, those are all good things. A commitment is a sacred thing. It's like a covenant where you or I, we agree that we're going to do whatever it takes to make a thing happen. And a vision without an owner, of course, is just hovers in the air, and it might be beautiful, might be true or inspired or really, divine. But if nobody owns it, it's never going to enter the world. It floats and sparkles and excites us all for a moment, and it drifts away. I see a lot of people living around hovering visions. They can feel them, talk about them, describe what should exist and why it should exist. They can see an injustice or an opportunity or the gap or the need or the possibility and talk beautifully about what would be wonderful. But they haven't crossed the line into ownership. And I can't own every vision that I see and every possibility, but I can own something. And a question I do ask myself, and I ask myself again this morning, what is mine to create? And what price am I willing to pay? Am I willing to pay the price to bring it into form? Not because we create alone or nobody else matters, and certainly not because we have all the answers, but because every real vision needs somebody to say, I'm going to stop waiting for the things I say I believe in. The language of wanting something is real comfortable. Wanting is comfortable. Wanting lets me stay emotionally attached to some vision, but avoiding the rigor or the cost of creation. Wanting lets me enjoy the identity of being a visionary without the burden of being responsible. I hear people say a lot, well, I'm a high-level person. I like to operate at the high level. I just, I see things in the big picture. And I'm not downplaying that. I've said that, and I do that too. But that doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's not important, but it doesn't matter unless you or me or someone, we organize a way to have the owner of the vision. It's frankly easy and pointless to talk about cool stuff without taking ownership. Wanting stuff lets me talk about things without them being in my calendar, or my habits, or my bank account, or my relationships, or my courage, or my visibility, or my willingness to be misunderstood. I was just at an event, and repeatedly, the idea was put forward, and I agree with this. If you don't have haters, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything worth seeing or following. Because if you take a stand and own a vision, you're going to accumulate haters. Good. That's a reward. Wanting can become really addictive because it's an emotional reward. We can feel elevated because we care. We feel some kind of moral elevation because we want good things. We feel spiritual because the vision is so beautiful. But caring is not creating, and wanting is not building, and admiring certainly isn't ownership. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting as a beginning, because every creation begins as some form of desire, but it's only the seed. And if a person, and I've heard so many say this, well, I'm a big picture person. I like to operate at the high level. Okay. But that's often, in fact, I would say most often, a cop-out. It's most often a cop-out because you haven't decided what you're going to do to get your hands dirty and get down off the high view and get down and make it happen. It's a story about a person we almost became. One of the saddest things, there's a poem about it, and I don't have it in front of me, but the phrase, "it might have been." The owner sentence is different than the vision sentence. The owner sentence is like, I'm committed to create this. It has weight. It brings the vision down out of the clouds and into the body. It enters my calendar, my bank account. It enters my morning creation. It enters uncomfortable conversation. It enters the draft, the phone call, the offer, the first version, the failed version, the revision, the practice, the repetition. I want to see this happen as a spectator point of view. I'm committed to create this as the owner inside. Ownership is where sovereignty becomes practical. You know, I talk a lot about WIPOS, worth, identity, possibility, ownership, and sovereignty. And none of that becomes meaningful without ownership. Now, you need all 5 parts. If you have a tiny version of your worth, then you operate from that place. If you have a misunderstanding of your identity and you don't realize that you're divine, you have a shriveled up view of what's inside of you. And your possibility then is necessarily shrunk because you don't understand that you're a divine being. And divine being means the offspring of the Great Spirit or God. Wow. But if I don't understand that, then I don't see possibility. WIPO, ownership, is next. And if I won't take ownership, but I choose to remain a spectator, and we have that choice, then I don't ever acknowledge the truth that moment to moment, I get to do what I want. And sovereign is that big word associated with royalty, and that's the truth. You're royalty, and you have the undeniable ability to create. You know, I just did a LA Talk Radio episode last night that was amazing. You should go listen to it. LATalkradio.com, look up Your Ultimate Life. Listen to last night's episode. It was amazing. Sovereignty becomes practical when we take ownership. Sovereignty is not just a beautiful internal state. It means I govern all my choices in alignment with truth. And people might say, well, whose truth? Well, your own. I'll bet you don't have a declaration of what truth is for you. If I ask you, define your own truth for me, is it just something you do in a minute? You create your truth in a minute? We need to stop. I'm suggesting we need to stop outsourcing responsibility for the things that I say make a difference. I got to stop waiting for permission from people who were never assigned to carry my vision. Vision is just the starting point. Ownership is expensive. And here's the part most folks don't like. Ownership has a cost. A real vision is going to ask something of you. I use the phrase blood on the floor because it symbolizes sacrifice and work, or crawling over broken glass. Now, every vision doesn't require that level of sacrifice, but the bigger it is, the more it's likely to. If it doesn't ask a lot of you, it's not a vision. It might be entertainment. A vision may cost your comfort. It may cost someone's approval. It will cost time. It'll take up time in your calendar and your bank account. It costs the pleasure of staying vague. It costs the identity of, I'm not ready yet. It may cost an old relationship that you might have with fear. It may cost laziness disguised as patience. Ooh, that one hits hard. It may cost the fantasy that someday the road's going to be obvious and risk-free. That's slap. Boom. People say often they want clarity. What they really want is a guarantee. They want a promise that if they move forward, nobody's going to criticize them, bash them around, nobody's going to fail, money's going to come easy, and people will understand. The path will appear and fear will leave, and that's not how creation works. If you read any of Stephen Pressfield's books on, the war of art and turning pro and doing the work and the artist's journey, I think there's 5 of them. I missed one of them in that series. It is blood on the floor. It takes effort, courage, and work. The vision gets clear as we walk. The next step only appears after we take this one. Courage is not issued in advance. It's produced only in the process of motion. Now, a real I think of a vision as a sacred opportunity. Some people might think of it as a burden, but it's not a burden in the sense of obligation or misery, but it is a burden in a sacred way. It has weight. Why? Because it matters. If you're called to write, every unwritten book has weight. If you're called to coach, every unserved client has weight. If you're called to build a business, the value that you didn't create has weight. If you're called to teach forgiveness, the people that are still under shame and resentment have weight. The weight is not a punishment, but it is a limitation. That's why avoidance feels so awful. Avoidance isn't rest. Avoidance is carrying the vision while refusing to give birth to it. Avoidance is dragging an uncreated thing behind you and wondering why you're tired. When you finally start the creation, it will take work. But your energy, my energy, got cleaner. The work is real, but the torment goes down because I'm about doing it. I'm all about doing it now. The resistance is now gone. Now, there is a difference between assignment and fantasy. Not every idea that we have is an assignment. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, and this happens a lot, I have so many ideas. I believe you with all my heart. Part of the burden of being a visionary or an idea generator is that you have to sequence them. You cannot push 9 balls up the hill. You can't be in the middle of creating 9 products and projects and have them be effective or efficient. Some ideas are just sort of passing interest. Some are distractions. Some are probably ego decorations. And some might be fantasies. And there's nothing wrong with fantasies. And sometimes we admire things because somebody else is doing them, but it's not our vision. Sometimes they're reactions to pain. Sometimes, and this is one that hit me hard, they're attempts to prove I matter or that I'm better. So, and then the question comes, how do you know a vision is yours? Well, there are some signs, but at the end of the day, you choose. Okay? It is our opportunity to exercise agency. We're blessed with consciousness. We're the only beings that can think about the future and the past, that can look at our behavior and think about it, that can do some kind of analyzing. We're the only ones. One sign that it's a real thing is that it keeps returning. It might change shape, but it doesn't leave. Man, that's so true for me and music. Another sign is that it is connected to love, service, truth, growth, and not applause. Another sign is that your vision that's real asks you to become more honest, more disciplined, more courageous, more generous, and frankly, more alive. Another sign is that avoiding it makes you feel smaller, while jumping in makes you feel more powerful or cleaner, or clearer, even if it scares the daylights out of you. A true vision doesn't just inflate you, it calls you. And if you've had that feeling, you know exactly what I mean. It doesn't say, wow, wouldn't this make you look impressive? It says, this is what life is for. There's another way we avoid committing to the vision, and that is the idea of humility that's really false humility. A lot of people avoid a vision under the constraint of humility. Who am I to do that? Who am I to write that book or lead that movement? Who am I to teach that or to charge money? Or who am I to say I can help? Those sound like humble questions, and they're not. They're not. You feel the things that you have learned and that you know. That kind of conversation is often fear disguised with a soft voice. Maybe a better question is, who am I to refuse the assignment if it was given to me? Who am I to bury a gift? Who am I to be afraid of being seen? Who am I to waste a hard-earned story, things that have happened in your life that have refined you? Who am I to refuse to share that because I might be criticized? Who am I to keep wisdom locked inside me because I'm not yet done, or I haven't built the perfect vessel, or I haven't got it all figured out? Real things always happen in progress. Real humility doesn't hide gifts. Real humility puts gifts into service and is less concerned about who gets the credit than that the service is provided. And that's not to say you don't build a robust business and make lots of money and get well paid for the service and vision that you create. Because when you amass resources, you have the ability to leverage reach and power. You have the ability to leverage impact. So this is never about ego. Gifts, callings, vision are given, and it's up to us not to waste it. Another thing that I see is something you might call the someday trap. Someday might be one of the most seductive words in the language. It's also one of the most terrifying. Someday I'll write the book. Someday I'll build the program. Someday I'll change the things I believe and who I am. Someday I'll build the workshop. Someday I'll have that conversation. Someday I'll start that business. Someday I'll get serious about this. Someday I'll become that person who can do it. What that really means is anything but now. ABN, anything but now. It also could mean I want the comfort of believing this is still possible later without the discomfort of doing something today. Today is all we've got. That might sound harsh, but it's true. The vision doesn't need someday. It needs a next faithful act, the next right move, the next right step, not the whole thing. I remember so well feeling so often, if I just knew this was going to work, then I'd have the courage to go do it. There's no perfect map. There's no guarantee. Just the next act. Open the document, make the call, draft the offer, tell a truth, schedule a session, get the help you need, record the video, reach out to me if I can help you, apologize, forgive, ask for the help, build the first ugly version, invite the first person, have the hard conversation, make the promise today. That's how visions get real. Not through some dramatic declaration alone, but through repeated acts of authorship, right? Repeated small acts of ownership. Now, what I know is that when we find a vision or choose one, find it. If I use the word find, it's like we're going to go dig it up in the yard. We don't find those things. We choose them. And I have a process called the triple helix that talks about how to find your purpose in life, right? And it involves looking at the skills you have, and the gifts you were given, and the life experience you have. And it's a very specific process. And if you're interested, get a hold of me, yourultimatelifepodcast.com. The URL's on the screen, yourultimatelifepodcast.com. There's a contact form, and ask me about finding your vision. You don't find it. You choose it. But the way you can choose it effectively is by looking at that triple helix. So when you go about building this vision, at least this is my experience, you get built too. You become now the person willing to take that next step. You become the person willing to move forward right to the edge of the light and then walk a few steps in the dark trusting the path will appear, because it does. You've moved from the person that's talking about a vision to a person that's willing to create it. In that process, you become the person you say you want to become. You get the courage you say you want to have. You get the clarity you're craving, but those things come in the action. They come in the failure. They come in the doing of the thing, the pursuing of it. Most people never become who they say they want to become because they refuse to do the work that would shape them. It's like saying, I want to be buff and I won't go to the gym or do some other thing. We refuse to do the work that shapes the outcome we want. The book you write shapes the author. I talk about books a lot because helping people write the story of their becoming unlocks wealth, impact, and joy for you. DreamBuildWriteIt.com, it's on the screen, is a place you can go for a challenge in a few weeks, in September, to help you. I can help you do that. I can show you how to do it. Okay, and writing the books about yourself, about how you became. It's not talking autobiography or bragging rights, but it's about the story of your becoming. So how did you become the person with this vision? The business, if you apply these becoming principles, will shape the leader. The marriage that you're committed to will strengthen and shape your heart. The child shapes the parent. Ask any parent. You learn more in being a parent than the child ever learns. The mission or calling will shape the servant. The mountain shapes the climber. Your vision will shape you. If you wait till you're ready, if you wait till you're already the person who can hold the whole thing, you will wait forever. You become the person who can hold the whole vision as you enter the work and never quit. That's why the first vision's always sacred, right? And it's going to be awkward. It's going to be rough. It's going to be incomplete. You're going to fail. It's certainly not going to carry the full power of what you see, because when you have this vision, this flash of light that shows you the thing, it's beautiful and complete. And our version 1.0 or even 0.1, well, we're just stumbling along. The first vision will not be the cathedral. It will not be the end game. It'll be just the first stone in the building placed by somebody who stopped finally circling the yard. So the question for you to think about, that I've been thinking about today, is do you have a vision? Of course you do. The real question is, are you willing to own it? Really? What are you willing to do to seek it, to create it? What are you willing to do to make it exist? What are you willing to learn? What are you willing to practice? Are you willing to suck at the beginning? Are you willing to be visible and have haters? Are you willing to be misunderstood and to stop using confusion as a hiding place? Are you willing to change your calendar and your schedule? Are you willing to spend some money? Are you willing to ask for the help you need? Are you willing to sell? Are you willing to lead? Are you willing to finish, get over the goal line? And maybe the most important question is, are you willing to be the kind of person who can be trusted with that vision? It breaks my heart when I see people describe a vision and then in the same place say, well, I don't know that I can do that. Well, then become the person who can be trusted with that. You have the vision, the thought, for a reason. So begin this moment to qualify yourself. The vision may not be waiting for better conditions. It may be waiting for the right owner. Not better in worth, because your worth is already infinite. Better in capacity or honesty or willingness or a little discipline. Better in consistency, right? The vision, the possibility that you see is not impressed by excuses and explanations. You know that. And you don't even feel better when you say that. Vision doesn't care if I'm busy or that I'm scared or that I don't think people aren't going to understand or that I think people aren't going to understand. It doesn't care that I've failed before, or it doesn't care that I don't have the whole path. The point of growth is to go without knowing the end, to start boldly and clearly. I've committed my life to helping people find and execute beautiful visions. The vision is there. It will wait. The vision just waits, not in anger or punishment, just waiting for you or me, the owner, to arrive and start the engine. That happens when we stop saying, I want to see this happen, and we start saying, I'm just committed to create no matter what it takes. A vision without an owner is like hovering in the air. It might be beautiful and inspired and sparkly and even divine, but it's not going to become real until you and I decide we own it and someone accepts responsibility for that creation. So today, I'm inviting you to listen to your language. If you say, I want to see, or I wish that this or that, are you standing near a vision and not owning it? We can't do everything, but that's no excuse not to do something. Where are you admiring something that maybe you're actually called to create? Change the sentence. I am committed to create and then express. Not perfect, not instantly, not alone, not without help, not without fear, but with honesty. And then just take the next faithful act, because the vision is waiting for an owner. And guess what? That owner, maybe it's you.